Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Well, this week I've got two jigs that I want to share with you, and one is a quick and simple jig that's pretty handy to have around the shop. How about a little jig that tears down sheet sandpaper into perfect quarters that you can use in your sanding blocks or your palm sanders? Well, this jig does that, and I'm going to show you how to make it. And the second one is a tapering jig, but it's a multi-function tapering jig, one that allows you to cut tapers, four-sided tapers on table legs and things. It allows you to cut angles on pieces of wood, odd angles that you might need to cut. And it also allows you to straight edge rough sawn lumber. Yep, this jig does all three and possibly even more, but that's the three I really touch base on in this video. So with that being said, let's get into it. Alright guys, well 9 times out of 10 jigs are made out of necessity, and that's exactly the case here. I needed a tapering jig that just wasn't a one-trick pony. I needed it to allow me to do a couple of things. One, cut four-sided tapers on a piece of stock. 2, straight edge some of my rough sawn lumber. And 3, cut various angles on stock. Now I scoured the internet, I scoured magazines, and I looked at all the different tapering jigs out there and all the different designs. And I came across this one. Now this is not my design, this is one I found, and I liked it so much because it allowed me to do those 3 functions and possibly even more. I mean, that's just the 3 I was kind of focusing on. But there may be endless possibilities when everything's said and done. Who knows? We'll find out in the end. But with this, I'm going to build it for my shop, and I thought I would take you along for the ride and show you, just in case you wanted to build one for yourself. Now, out of this, I've got a sheet of half-inch birch plywood. It's 24 inches by 48 inches long. If I had my preference, I'd actually use half-inch MDF for the base of this. But I looked around town and everything, and there was no place that had any half-inch available. So I went with the half-inch birch, which is fine. It's still the same thing. For some reason, I think the MDF would just be bang up much better, just like the MDF base on my crosscut sled. But we're going to go with the birch. Now, out of this 24 by 48 inch sheet, I'm also going to be able to make that smaller jig that I showed you earlier, which is the sandpaper teardown jig. And we're going to be able to get both the jig bases and everything and all the components for this jig actually out of this one sheet. First thing I want to do is go ahead and rip a length of 48 inches, which I have, but I need to get it down to 11 1/4 inches wide. And that's going to be the sled for the tapering jig. So we'll go ahead and get that ripped down. I've got everything set up, and we'll get started on this thing. Alright, now that I have the 11 1/4 inch strip ripped off there by 48 inches long, that's going to be the base for the tapering jig. Now I want to set it aside for a minute because we're going to go ahead and knock out this little sandpaper jig. This only takes just a matter of minutes. Really simple. So we're going to get that out of the way because the tapering jig is just a little bit more entailed. There's a little bit more involved with it. So what I want to do is, out of this piece here, I want to go ahead and rip a 12 by 12 square off of here. Okay, now that I have the 12 by 12 square cut out of there, this is going to be the base for the sandpaper jig, and we're going to go ahead and rip off an 1.5 inch strip off of here. Okay guys, we've got our 12 by 12 base here, and then out of that 1.5 inch long strip, that 48 inch long strip that I had, I went ahead and cut one 12 inch piece, 2 10.5 inch pieces, and that left me with about a 2 5/8 inch pieces right here. So that's going to be our little stop block. You need to get yourself a little hinge. This is just a little brass hinge and a couple of hinge screws, and a hacksaw blade, an old one, or new, it doesn't matter. This one is a 10 inch. You can use a 10 or a 12 inch. I just happen to, my hacksaw is a 10 inch hacksaw, so I got a couple of 10 inch blades laying around. And first thing you want to do is go ahead and take your 12 inch long piece and glue and brad nail it across the front, or just glue it and clamp it and let the glue dry. But I'm going to go ahead and brad nail it so we can get through this. Make sure you're flush along the top and the sides. Go ahead and glue and nail it into place. Now, go ahead for now and set your 2.5-inch pieces up. These are the 10.5 by 1.5 inch. Just set them up along there. Now this is just the regular 3M sandpaper that I always quarter up. I buy it in the sheets like this. It comes in packs of 5, 10, you know, what have you. What you want to do is fold it in half perfectly. Alright? Take your hacksaw blade and lay it in that fold. And bring your paper nice and square up to here. Make sure that you are right in the fold, and wherever your hacksaw blade is, make a couple of pencil marks so you can we're going to cut a couple of notches out of these two side pieces. I always make my notches a little bit wider, doesn't matter. Now with those pencil marks on there, all we have to do is we're going to go over to the table saw and we're going to cut out those notches right there on both pieces. So let's go do that. Alright, on those notches I cut quite a bit out. All I wanted to leave behind was 1/8 of an inch is what I left behind on these. So really small amount. Alright, now we can go ahead and get those two sides glued and attached. Like so. Alright, so one thing you want to do is one side, which is for me, it's going to be my right side. I don't know why I like using the right side, but I want to put a square on here when I attach this. I want to make sure that this is dead square on one side. The other side is not really that important, believe it or not, unless you want to square them up on both sides, but just one side. That way when my paper goes on here, I slide it to one side and I know I'm squared up. So go ahead and glue and pin nail that into place. Now on this one, you're gonna, if you flush it up, you're gonna squeeze your paper. You're not gonna have enough room to get your paper in here. Go ahead and back it off a little bit. You'll have a little bit of overhang on the side here. That's not a problem. Just so your paper slides in and out nicely. You know what I mean? Get that in place, glue and pin nail it. Make sure that you orientate your groove so that it's exactly where it was when that paper was folded in half. Alright, quick and dirty. This is just a simple jig. There's not a lot to it. So now, go ahead and once again get your blade up in that folded half piece of paper and get it in there. Make sure you're up against this lip and you're nice and tight, and then make sure that blade is right in that groove of that fold. Okay? Just get it up in that fold really nicely, and go ahead and put a couple of screws in there to get it screwed down. Alright, now with that screwed down and your paper's referenced in there and everything, you should be able to tear off half of it. Good? Good. Alright, now take one of the halves that you just ripped off and fold it in half exactly. Make sure it's a good fold. Get all your edges lined up. And slide it up in there. Fold it in half. And get it up against that blade. Get that blade back in the fold. Now here, if you can see, you got a little bit of a space here. Okay, that's what this stop block's going to be that we're going to fold down. So let's go ahead and make a pencil mark and get a measurement. That's how wide our stop block needs to be. which is 1 inch. 1 inch. Now my little remaining piece stop block here is 1.5 inches, so I need to go ahead and take a 1/2 inch off and make that 1 inch long stop block. So I'll do that real quick. Alright guys, I've got my stop block, which is now you know, 2 5/8 by 1 inch wide. I think I said 1 inch long just a second ago, but 1 inch wide is what I need. And that, boom, lines right up on my mark. So now I'm going to go ahead and I want to take that and I want to install this hinge on the main reference face here, and the stop block. I'm going to go ahead and center that hinge and get it installed. Okay, so now my hinge and my little stop block is in there, my little flip stop block. Alright, now all you got to do is, when you rip your sheet in half the first time, take your half sheet, slide it up under your blade and up to that stop block. Alright, up to the stop block, and then go ahead and rip that. Take your other half, do the same thing, up to that stop block, and that gives you 4 quarters that you can use for your stop blocks or your sanding blocks and everything, your quarter sanding blocks. That's how I quarter my sheets, and that's how you make this quick and simple little jig.